Hey everybody, welcome to the David Pakman Show. I'm producer Pat Ford filling in for David today. David is on vacation for much of this week. He will be back on Friday. A number of Republicans are calling for the arrest of Joe Biden and also Hunter Biden and any other Democrats that they can possibly trump up charges against as a way to retaliate against Donald Trump getting indicted and then arrested last week in New York. Now, what issues do they want to arrest Biden and these other Democrats over? That's not as important. They just want to do this because they see it as a way to get vindication, right? Because Donald Trump, for once in his entire life, is finally being held accountable to some degree, to some small degree, after his years and years of criminality. I spoke about this matter on last week's Friday bonus show, the award-winning, world-famous bonus show, I might add. But there have since been more Republicans adding to this chorus of right-wing calls to do something like this, to levy charges against Joe Biden and these other Democrats. First and foremost, we're hearing from Congressman James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight Committee. He went on Fox and Friends late last week to comment on how there are these district attorneys in places like Kentucky and Tennessee who are trying to come up with some way to charge the Bidens, even though they don't know what issue they're going to do it over. Let's take a look at this clip.
And I had two calls yesterday, one from a county attorney in Kentucky and one from a county attorney in Tennessee. They were Republican, obviously. Both states are heavily Republican. They want to know if there are ways they can go after the Bidens now. And they've opened up a can of worms. They've set precedents now that we can't go back on. And now we're going to see a judicial system that's already bogged down with doing what they're supposed to do, and that's going after real criminals, people that are committing real crime.
Now, what jurisdiction would these DAs have to indict Biden? There, of course, isn't any, because the crime would have had to take place in one of those two states. Remember Donald Trump's hush money payment that took place in New York City, and where are the charges coming from about this? You guessed it, New York City. The issues that Republicans talk about potentially indicting Biden on have to do with his supposed corruption, even though they really can't articulate it all that well, but they'll mention Ukraine or China or some other foreign country. Sometimes they'll talk about the classified documents scandal that implicated Joe Biden, even though Donald Trump is way more guilty on that topic. So if you're going to go after Biden on this, it stands to reason you'd also have to go after Donald Trump. If you do go after Biden on any of these topics, it would probably need to come from the federal governments, or at least involve the states in question. Like the supposed crime that took place would have had to have taken place in one of these states. But the fact is that this has nothing to do with, trying to stay consistent or trying to uphold the rule of law or trying to, make sure that this is done in a proper way. It really is just about getting vindication. We're also now hearing from whiny, hysterical right-wing talk show host Mark Levin about this topic. He's also trying to get anyone to charge Joe Biden and the Democrats for what? Again, not important, but he just knows that it has to be done. Here's Mark Levin.
And once again, for multiple times, this show's heard all over the country. It's heard all over the world, actually. I'm asking Republican prosecutors out there to take a very good look at your own statutes, local, state, and even federal, but particularly the state prosecutors, the DAs, the state prosecutors, and so forth. See if there's anything there that you can use to charge Biden or any senior Democrat official. I mean, if you're not 100% certain, you're 80% certain that it'll fly, then do it. It's the only way this will stop. Do it. Because otherwise, this will continue. You'd be doing it for your country. You'd be doing it in the name of the law. It is a legitimate reply and response. It's the only way to at least begin the process of clawing us back from the abyss, because we're already falling into the abyss.
In addition to the DAs in Tennessee and Kentucky that Comer mentioned, and Mark Levin talking about how we got to charge Biden, we're also hearing from Tom Fitton, who is the president of the conservative legal group Judicial Watch. He said, quote, "All bets are off. You can expect grand jury indictments of leftist politicians like Biden, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer as surely as night follows day." Mike Davis, a former chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee and president of the Article 3 Project, said that, quote, "If New York can turn a routine settlement of a business dispute 7 years ago into a felony, I think our Republican AGs and DAs should get creative." Get creative is what he says. Like, he seems to admit there that there's no actual reason to charge the Bidens. It wouldn't be right to do so, but he wants them to get creative. He went on to say that two wrongs don't make a right, but it does make it even, and that's what this is about, getting even. So he's out and out saying, yeah, we're just going to make it up. We're just going to come up with whatever reason we can charge the Bidens on. Hearing from these Republicans, you would think that Donald Trump just didn't get a pass like he did over and over again throughout the entire course of his political career. He did get a pass, and now he's finally, to the smallest degree, being held accountable for just one of these alleged crimes. This is the hush money payment, of course, the incident that took place back in 2016. His then fixer, Michael Cohen, who's since been a guest on this program, went to prison over this. Donald Trump was a sitting president at the time, and he was protected by this idea that there's this long-standing precedent that you can't charge a sitting president. It hasn't actually been tested before, but that's long been the tradition here in this country. But that wasn't the only issue that you could have possibly gone after Trump on. Of course, there was the Russia scandal, where Robert Mueller concluded in his report that Donald Trump should be charged for obstruction of justice, but since it was believed you couldn't indict a sitting president, he was saying that it's actually Congress's responsibility to hold him accountable. Congress should impeach Donald Trump, and of course they ended up not doing that. Then there was the scandal in Ukraine, which would have been criminal if done by anyone else who was not a sitting president. Withholding congressionally approved aid from a country, saying that he's not going to give that to him unless they dig up dirt on his political opponent. Then there's, of course, the fraudulent business practices that the Trump organization committed, where he would inflate the value of his assets when it was time to take out a loan, and he would deflate them when it was time to pay taxes. They chose not to go after Trump personally on this matter, just to hold the company accountable. There's obviously the phone call in Georgia where he pressured Brad Raffensperger to find him 11,280 votes that didn't exist when it was clear that he had lost the election. Hopefully there will be some accountability on that. Hopefully we eventually get some charges out of Georgia, but thus far it hasn't happened. There's the January 6th insurrection where he sent his supporters to the Capitol to commit a coup, and then he didn't try to stop them once the coup was actually unfolding. There's the classified documents scandal, which I alluded to before, where he took sensitive information to Mar-a-Lago and then lied about giving the documents back when he actually didn't. It got to the point where the FBI had to actually conduct a search on his home and seize the documents to get them back to the National Archives. So all of these things and more, all of these things are indictable infractions. He's only so far being held accountable for one of them, just one of them, and it's probably the least serious of all of them. And for whatever reason, Republicans feel as though this is grounds to go after Democrats on and make this a tit for tat sort of thing. So Trump has gotten away with so much. What would it take for Republicans to accept that he was actually worthy of prosecution without turning this into a political game? Like, would he actually have to shoot someone on Fifth Avenue? Even if that happened, even if he did shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, I think they would still bring the conversation back to Hunter Biden and the laptop from hell. But that's the latest. Republicans trying to muck up charges against Joe Biden and the other Democrats that they want to make their new political targets. I hope that the American public sees through this. I hope that if Biden actually is indicted for some reason, then the American public will be able to understand that it's Republicans just trying to play dirty political games and Biden isn't actually worthy of being charged for anything. But that's what Republicans are doing right now.
One of our sponsors is Betterhelp. I am a huge believer in therapy. Let's say you've been thinking for a while about getting into therapy. You know it's the right move. You have things you'd like to talk to someone about. There is no better time than the present, but you don't have to drive across town every week and sit in a waiting room because of BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service. It's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists specializing in a wide range of issues. You answer a few questions about yourself, and BetterHelp will match you with a therapist based on your specific needs and preferences. The sessions can be on the phone, video call, chat, anytime, anywhere, from your couch at home, from your office at work. And if your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch anytime at no charge. My audience gets 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Pacman. The link is down below.